This video is going to show you how to use Excel to calculate different formulas and find different statistical analysis data without calculating it yourself. So I already have input my feet and inches for my heights. So this is just my trial data. It's just an example, so make sure that when you're entering your data, you do not have the same numbers as me. You have the numbers that we came up with in class. So input that data right now. You can pause this video while you do that. Okay, so once you have it in there, we want to find our decimal feet. Instead of 5 feet 6 inches, we don't want everything in two different units. We want everything to be in feet. So before, in part 1, you had to calculate this by hand. You found a conversion factor. 1 foot is 12 inches, and use that for each single data point. But now we can use Excel to do that for us, which makes our life a lot easier. So we can click in the box right next to our first data points and click in equals. If you start your box with equals, it knows you're going to input a formula. So it will calculate your formula based on what you're putting in. So what I want to do is take my inches, convert them into feet, and then add on the amount of feet that I have. So I know that 6 inches is 6 inches is half of a foot, so that should come out to 0.5. But I know that 1 foot is 12 inches. So if I say, in parentheses, if I say I want this value to be divided by 12, which means I have 6 inches, I'm going to divide by 12 inches so that my units are just going to be into feet. And then after I do that, I want to add this feet value. So instead of typing in my 6 and my 5, I'm going to actually just click these boxes, and we're going to see that B3 and A3 are going to pop up, because that's telling us that I'm using the data that's in this box, and we're doing that for a specific reason. So we can click enter there, and I know it should come out to be 5.5 because 6 inches is half of a foot. 6 inches is half of 12. So now, since I have this formula in here, instead of just 6 divided by 12 plus 5, I can now click on this box and go into the corner, this little black box, and I'll get that weird black plus sign. If I double click on that, it will do that formula all the way down, and you can see up here that as I move into the 6, the 7, the 8, I'm now changing from A, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, depending on which row I'm in. So this is a really useful tool that we can use in Excel. So now I have all of my my heights in decimal feet. I want to put the sum of all of my decimal feet next to it. Now I could sit there and I could do this a bunch of ways. I could type in 5.5 plus 5.333 plus 5.58. That's going to take a long time. I could also do equals this plus this plus this, but that's just not going to help me at all. So I can do equals sum, and that is actually just a function in Excel. And if I just say sum of all the numbers that I want, which are from here to here, and I close those parentheses, once I click enter, it's going to sum up all of those numbers. So that's the sum that I get of all those values. Now I want to also get the average. So in order for me to get the average of these, I'm going to take this sum and divide it by how many there are. And in this case, I have 18 data points. You might have 20 or 19, depending on how many people are absent that day. So I'm going to do the same thing, equals this. I can either do this value divided by 18, or I can just say average, AV, average, average of, parentheses, these numbers. And make sure you don't include your sum in there, because that will mess all of your values up. So we want the average of these numbers. Click enter, and there's my average. So we can get a lot of information using Excel's built-in different built-in functions, but we can also use that analysis tool pack that we were talking about before that's over here in our data tab. So if you go to data and you go to data analysis, we want to know, what about if you want standard deviation and all these other things? They might take a little while. Having these functions make it take shorter, but it still, could be quicker. So you're going to scroll in this box. We could do a bunch of different things, and later we'll use the histogram part of our data analysis, but we want to click descriptive statistics. So make sure you have that highlighted and click OK. Now we're going to get this box, and we have an input range. So we're going to click on here, and whatever's in that box we're going to delete. So our input range is going to be all of our decimal feet. Make sure don't include your sum or your average, and then click that button. So that's my input data. Now I want to say, this is output options. Where do you want it to go? It's going to give us a bunch of different information, but they're saying, where do you want me to put that information? So I always like clicking output range, because then I can get that information right on the same sheet. If you click new worksheet, it will go down in a different sheet down here. And if you do new workbook, it'll open an entire new Excel with just that information on it. So I would click output range, and then I would click this little button. And in there, you can click anywhere on your page, and that will tell it that that's where you want the beginning of your data analysis to go. So I just click anywhere, a little bit away from my data. You only really need to click one. You could highlight a bunch, but it's not necessary. So I just click one, and then click that little button, and make sure this summary statistics is checked. Once you're done with that, click OK. And here we go. Look at all this information it's giving me. The mean is 5.685, and look at my average is the same exact value, so we know that that's doing it correctly. My standard error, my median, mode, standard deviation, and all these other things. I have a range, how far my values are, how many data points I have, 18, my sum, so I can check and see that I have all these different values that Excel just gave to me in a matter of seconds. So I want you to check your data with the data that you have here and explain why there are any differences if there are.